Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Dyslexia Life Hacks Show. My name is Matthew Head. Today, we have on Alison Edgar, the entrepreneur's godmother. However, before she earned that title, she actually struggled at school and spent quite a lot of time working in sales, where she overachieved. After all this, she decided to make the brave decision in 2014 to start her own business, which helps entrepreneurs to startups. She's been twice voted one of the UK's top 10 business advisors. She has 2 number 1 best-selling books, Secret Success of Sales, and recently just come out, Smash It. She's a public speaker, been on the BBC, and if that's not enough, she's also been to a royal garden party. Welcome to the show, Alison.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
That's okay. I thought I'd ask first, because I'm really curious, what's it like to receive an MBE?
Do you know what? Shock. I think shock. So for anybody that doesn't know what an MBE is, twice a year, the Queen honours people for different things. So you can get like services to allotments or marrow grown or whatever. But a lot of the famous people, things like Joe Wicks got an MBE, Marcus Rashford got an MBE the same time that I did. So I think I went into shock. But the other thing was, you're not allowed to tell MD. So this was like, I found out in June 2020. Okay. And normally you can tell people in July 2020, but because they were honouring the COVID heroes, we weren't allowed to tell anybody till October. So I'm rubbish at keeping secrets. So I had to do a big secret. And in my head, so it went from shock to excitement to then I had to just kind of forget about it. And then when it came out, shock and tears. But I haven't been to the palace yet. So I get to go to Buckingham Palace to get my investiture from either the Queen or Princess Anne, Prince William or Prince Charles. I think are the only ones that do the investiture. So, or Princess Anne. Yes. So I think it'll become a wee bit more real when I've got my little medal thing. What I'm going to do with the medal, I've no idea. But yeah, it's exciting as well. I'm so excited. And again, you know, coming from a humble start, I came from a working class background. I left school at 16, undiagnosed dyslexia. That I think it proves that you can actually achieve things, maybe not in the conventional way, with the non-neurodiverse people, whereas we can do it in a neurodiverse way.
Yeah. You got a particular preference to who you'd like to bestow you with the medal? Obviously, the Queen would be amazing because we don't have many years left. She'll do it, and I don't even know she's doing it anymore. But Princess Anne, I think I walked the crown, right, and I think she's quite gutsy. I'll look at her and she's quite outspoken, and she does rock Princess Anne. So that would be my second choice, Princess Anne. Yeah, I can see that. I might go for Prince William because he's actually ridden a motorbike I've had a hand in designing, so that'd be
nice. Fun. There you go.
So you did mention through that your start from a humble background, and you cover it quite a lot in your first book. But I sort of thought I'd dive in a little bit heavier, considering the topic of this podcast, into the dyslexia side of it. And it seems to be a kind of thing I'm finding out quite a lot. People get found out later on in life, whether it's their children or they hand in a report because they're a late start at uni. I mean, I found out at the late old age of 6 that I was dyslexic, but I feel like an outlier. So I was interested, when did you find out, and how did that process go?
Well, I think it's quite interesting because now when we say dyslexia or dyspraxia or neurodiversity, more and more people know what it is. But I don't even know if it had again, this would have been I started school I started high school in 1979. Oh, I'm giving my age away now. So I don't even know. It was obviously a thing, but I don't know if it had a name of a thing at that stage. And for me, there was a couple of things. I'm bright and I'm quite sparky, so I could hide the flaws, if that makes sense. And I could overcome them and sit next to the clever people and go, how do you spell this? And what does that mean? And, I could do all that stuff. But I think one of the things that really caught me out when I realised this doesn't feel normal, I don't feel like everyone else, was in English class. And again, this is 1979 in English class in Scotland, even doing Shakespeare or doing, quite heavy books. and you had to stand up and read a paragraph out loud. And I just, again, I can't even get the words out. It's like, I had to work out ways, like you hear about people who tried to get out of PE with a sick note. I was like that with English. Oh my goodness, I think I don't feel very well. I think I have to go to the nurse. Or I can't read today because I've got a sore throat. I would always find an excuse of not to read. And even when I did, it was embarrassing because it was like a 5-year-old child, the cat sat on the mat and it would be, it was, and especially Shakespeare, Shakespeare of all the things,
Yeah, so, not only is it normal language, you've got the thespian Old English to tackle with, which is just,
awful. So, other people seemed to be able to do it, and it seemed that I was in the minority of the people that couldn't read, but I never really let it hold me back, if that makes sense. And I think I compensated by building really strong friends and having a good friendship group in the class. So I didn't get the mickey taken out of me, and I found ways to overcome. I think that's what I'd say, find ways to overcome. And it was then only when I was in my I think late 20s, early 30s. Mm-hmm. But this time I had come back to the UK. I'd been traveling, come back to the UK, and I was selling advertising space for Yellow Pages at the time because, Matthew, there was no internet. And I don't mean the Wi-Fi was down. I mean, the internet wasn't around. We had to use like books and things.
I remember shopping for a car insurance by using the Yellow Pages.
Yeah, there's none of that internet stuff. No Grammarly, none of that. I had gone to see an optician. I'd gone to see an optician to get my eyes done, but that was one of the clients was an optician. Spooners. The name of the optician was Spooners, and it was in Bristol. Okay. And I had said to the guy, because at that stage we had to write things out manually, and I'm trying to write the copy for the advert, and he said, "Are you dyslexic?" And I went, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What is that? What is this thing you talk of, this dyslexia?" And he said, it's when you're not, connecting the dots and, you might miss out the words. And I went, I do that all the time. I said, how would I know if I was dyslexic? And he said, let me do a quick test for you. And he put the coloured frames on the words and all that kind of stuff. And he said, yes, you're definitely dyslexic. So I think knowing that I wasn't just a wee bit weird and a wee bit strange helped. My confidence was always high because I found coping strategies when I was young for anything that I couldn't do. But I think knowing that I wasn't just a weirdo that couldn't read, it gave me strength to believe that I could make that I could be even stronger in my strengths and not focus too much on the things that I couldn't do.
So did you ever feel like you were stupid or got called stupid when you were younger, or were you just that weirdo instead?
Yeah, I was weird. I touch wood. I can't remember people calling me stupid. I can't remember going, "Oh, she's really stupid. She can't read," because I had already found a coping strategy and people to surround myself that didn't care whether I could read or not. They liked me for being me. So I think that early on, even though I didn't know there was why I felt stupid. But I found a way that people wouldn't call me stupid because I compensated with the things I was really good at. So I was really good with people. I was a really good friend. I was, I was never a class clown, but I was always quite amiable and always got on. I was quite good at golf. So there was always ways that I could work around that people wouldn't call me stupid. They might think it, but they never said it out loud. So that wasn't something I had to deal with because I had already put a coping strategy in place.
Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting. I had a female barrister, probably similar age group to you, and one of the key things we found out on her episode was she was never called stupid either, and she just carried on striving through sort of some other people's experience. The stupid thing really gets them down, I think. So that's quite nice that your coping strategy, you balance the whole thing out. And as a total,
it sounds really random, Matthew, but I've always been quite a big girl. So I was more concerned that people called me fat. They used to call me fat McCall. This guy Peter, I could remember, like, he used to live down by my granny and be like, who's afraid of Fat McCall? Fat McCall. That got on my nerves more than people think I was stupid. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So maybe there was just other things going on at that time.
Maybe. Priorities, I see.
Yeah. I was more concerned. And I think as a female as well, you are, at that stage when you're going through puberty and you are young and you are at school, you do concern yourself with a lot of the stuff that actually what you look like, if that makes sense. So
yeah, I can sort of understand it. I was never worried about being called fat, but I was always the tallest one. So being called lanky was my kind of thing.
See, but then everybody's got a thing that's not, everybody's flawed. There's no one person that's not flawed. So it's what you use for your flaw. Like, it's great being tall because when you go to a concert, you can see the stage and the bands, but all the short people can't. Exactly. So again, or you could think, I stand out a lot because I'm tall, people see me. Well, and that's that. I think it's finding the strength in the flaw.
Also, don't have a secondary use of the yellow pages. So you drop out of school. You don't drop out of school, but you finish school and find yourself into sales. Do you think sort of some of your dyslexic thinking led you to sales? Because sales seems to be a lot of talking. In my outsider's view, I'm an engineer and don't do sales at all. You do a lot of sort of talking, and it's more charisma-wise and coming up with ad campaigns and visualizing things in place than it is text heavy, or you've got a copywriter, I think they're called, to do that for you. Do you think that was sort of your brain finding its route of least resistance into a job that really worked for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that came a wee bit later. So from school, I ended up working in hospitality. I became a hotel receptionist. So straight from school, I became a hotel receptionist. And I think what that did actually allowed me to use my creativity. I know that sounds obscure, but when I got the job in the first place, I thought a hotel receptionist gave out keys. I thought that's all you did. Here's a key. Check it out. Thank you. I did literally think that that's all you did.
Did you rehearse that routine in the mirror before you started?
I did. Checking it. But what I didn't realise, in a small hotel, actually you do everything. So apart from cook, because nobody wants to eat my food, but I used to cash off all the bars. So I did every piece of cash that would come through the hotel would come through me. And again, no computers, Matthew. I had to do everything in a manual tab. So like the reservations was manual tab, the bookkeeping was manual tab. I used a calculator, a rubber. So actually I quite like numbers. I think that's where I quite like the number side. I can understand how to work that. Also, like when it came to the function side, I would be, again, I've got a really good head for organisation. My head works really well in the fact that I'm highly organised and I can overcome problems. So again, I think that's one of the superpowers of dyslexia. So I can remember I would be 17 years of age and I would be emceeing a wedding. I mean, literally me with my gavel, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the bride and the groom, all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And I didn't have that fear. And even like, so say I was running the food and beverage and say somebody was off sick for like serving the potatoes, silver service or whatever, I could always go, well, you take that section, I'll do that. So I think that I really flourished on my superpowers, that everything else, like typing the menus. Again, we used to have one of these little typewriters that it was before computers, right? And you would type it in a little tiny screen and then it would go and it would print the menu. Well, I used to have to use the Tipex because I'd made all the words wrong and the spacing wrong. And I couldn't, my brain couldn't equate typing the chef's paper menu to me typing it into the menus for the restaurant. So that's where the gap was. So what I would try and do is I would say to one of the other receptionists, can you do that bit and I'll do this bit? So there was always a way that I could try and offload the bits that really were affecting what I did. So, but then I went traveling for 6 years, still in hospitality. And then I came back and that's when I moved into sales. And I think the skills that I had learned, I would say that my emotional intelligence is high. And that really helped for sales. I would say that my entrepreneurial side, the creativity side was high and that helped with sales. So I think, again, it was just always focusing on those things that really made me unique and positive.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, so you basically just focused so hard on all of the strengths that they absolutely annihilated any weak point that somebody might have.
Yeah, people didn't notice. I don't think that people really noticed, because I didn't fly the flag. I just concentrated on the things I was great on, and all they could see were the real, the shiny star points of me rather than the other side.
And it's very cunning, or not cunning, but a good way of learning delegation to
I was really good at that. But even to this day, you've interacted with my team. Like I obviously talk about dyslexia now because I think it's important.
Yeah, I agree.
The reason I talk about it is not to go, oh, poor me, I'm dyslexic, but actually, if you surround yourself with the right people, actually, if you set the right goals, actually, if you take action and stay positive and stay focused, you can do anything. This can be something that propels you rather than drags you back.
Yes, I agree. It's one of the reasons this podcast exists, to kind of put that out there. It's not what I believed all the way through till I was about 35. So, and it is quite important that people do hear that dyslexia is superpower, or the gift of dyslexia. Actually, you can really shine some strong skills that cover over some of the weak ones, or actually you can find people who will coach you on how to mitigate them, and then you've suddenly got all the strong skills with not as many weak points, which is even better.
There you go.
So you found out when you were still working at Yellow Pages about being dyslexic. Did that change any of your approach? Did you go search out any help or guidance, or did you just go, oh, it's that, but carry on?
Well, it's so interesting because, this would then have been the 90s, skip 20 years. So this is like, or maybe I don't know what year it was, but it was kicking around. It was about the same time as Oasis were singing Wonderwall. So whatever time that was.
96.
It was about that time. And what I then had to do when I worked at Yale, we had to sit like a test every year, like a written examination on what you would know about the skills and, the how to create content and copy. And every year we had to, and again, it came back. That's when the memories would come flooding back of reading out loud in English. And I'd say to my sister's a pharmacist, she's not dyslexic. And she would say, you should tell them you're dyslexic. You need extra time for your test. Right? And I said, no, honestly, I don't think that's going to make a difference at all. And I think this is you look now at bigger organizations, you look at EY, you look at big organizations like Yale. It's acknowledged now that people are not stupid. It's not that they can't spell, and it's not that they're not trying. It's actually that they've got neurodiversity and they take that strength as what it is. They help them now. Whereas before, if somebody maybe was good at sales, they were really bad at paperwork, and then what they would do is they would hide the paperwork in the boot. I mean, I know people, and it's only as later on when I reflect back on that time, they were scared of the paperwork because they probably didn't know how to fill it in. They were great at sales, getting people to say yes, but they couldn't create that paperwork journey for the client because they just were too frightened, or it just was too hard for them. And I think that's where, touch wood, I've always thought, well, if I take my time, and because I'm organised, I think because I'm highly organised, that's another superpower that I have.
Yes,
that made it easier for me because I quite liked the paperwork. I didn't like doing the writing-y bit, but I loved the tick the box. I've completed that task.
Did you have like a big long to-do list and love ticking it all off?
Well, I mean, even now, you've read both the books. I talk about Alison Edgar's Big Balls because I find the to-do list is really hard. So I've translated to-do lists into how do you manage your time as basketballs, tennis balls, and ping pong balls. And again, if you look at that from a neurodiverse side, it's visual. So if I think, right, okay, so what have I got in my diary? Right, I've got to be with Matthew at 6:30. That's my basketball. And then what I've got to do is fit the other things around it. So I'll do my tennis balls and, really focusing. I can see my diary randomly as basketballs, tennis balls, and ping pong balls.
Yes, I really like, because it's the jar of sand analogy. It feels like it comes from. And
it comes actually going back further than that. It's the Eisenhower quadrant. So like Stephen Covey, translated it into the jars in the sand, but that wasn't his. And it's interesting because, I've obviously doing this work in the personal development space. And do you know what? I don't think there's anything new. It's just a different spin. And it's the spin that works for you, and I think the reason sands in the jar worked is because you can see it. That doesn't fit. These don't fit. And it's the same sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm listening to I've listened to both your books in audio because in the car and stuff. And one of the things I noticed you do really well is paint pictures. Like as you were doing Alison's big balls, which initially made me laugh because of all the innuendo, but and then you're like your basketball and your tennis balls and I've got them bouncing around like in my head a squash court, and I'm like, yeah, I could really see that. And one of the things I enjoyed about reading your books was that every kind of point you come out with has this really vivid visualization of story that ends up in my brain anyway. Maybe that's because I'm also neurodiverse, draws this nice picture in. So actually, I remember quite a lot what you've said in your book by the picture that conjures up the moment you mention one of your kind of philosophies. I'm
now thinking about the big wave. It's when I got hit by the big wave and sitting on the day back. And I think it's that fear, isn't it? So, and maybe because I am neurodiverse, I talk to neurodiverse people because they understand it. But I think actually I try and keep it as simple as I can so that everybody can understand it. And if you want academic, if you want Eisenhower quadrant, then you don't really want to work with me. Don't work with me. Go and work with an academic. That's great. Oh, see you later. But again, I think it's about staying true to your message. And I see myself as a translator of highbrow academic into something that everybody can understand, and especially the neurodiverse community. And I think I take one for the team to try and do that, to stop people who may feel stupid from feeling stupid, because I can translate it into something that they can easily understand and easily implement.
Yes. And I think it certainly stuck in my brain. And I remember Jock Boyle, who was on a previous episode, mentioned that he got your first book, and because you were dyslexic, it spoke directly to him. And I think that is the dyslexic strength, isn't it? Be able to verbalize and paint all these stories. Something I'm finding interesting as I'm learning, how do you find explaining something to neurotypical? So you talk about one of many things in your book that you paint images for. So Alison's big balls being one of them and the big wave being another. How do you find if you're telling somebody neurotypical, do they come along with you on that? Or do you find you have to sort of modify it at all, or?
No, because I think because I've made it as simple as I can. I mean, everybody knows what a basketball is, a tennis ball and a ping pong ball. You might not like it. And again, it's interesting what you say about, the innuendo behind it, because it was never really created with an innuendo. It was literally basketballs, tennis balls, ping pong balls. And if people take it with innuendo, then that's a them thing. That's not a me thing. But I do think the neurotypical see more of the innuendo. Some people don't like my content, and I don't have a problem with that. And I'll give you an example that on LinkedIn, somebody put out a post, and LinkedIn, that's the biggest generator of work for me. So from a sales training perspective, from a leadership training perspective, from a speaking perspective, most of the work comes through LinkedIn. So I'm really active on there. But one of the coping strategies I've got on my Mac, I've got a thing called Fiona. So I highlight the text and I've set it to Scottish, right?
Of course, yeah.
It's a little bit like me. And Fiona reads back what I've written. So I go through paragraph by paragraph, because usually I'm missing the as, the there's, the, and I'm getting the there's, and, it's a bit messy. So Fiona reads it back, and I can auditory hear if I've missed a word, or if it's not in the right context, or, I can listen back, and then I can do the amendments from there. So that's why when I'm putting a LinkedIn post out, I try and do so that I don't get the LinkedIn grammar police on my case. There's another guy that I know who he flies the flag as well for neurodiversity, and he had commented on a post, so it came up on my feed. And somebody was saying, what do you think of people who can't spell? This is, we talk about controversial. What do you think about people? And you should have seen the vile comment. Well, I would give them a job as a tour guide, but I wouldn't give them a job doing admin. And these people were not joking. This was not a joke. This was literally. And I said, look, would you be making that humour with somebody with a physical disability? You know, if somebody only had one arm or one leg, would you be standing here on LinkedIn and posting away and ripping them off and ripping them apart? You would not.
No,
you have no idea how vile these comments are. Anyway, the guy came back to me and went, I think you're overreacting. I'm going to get you barred from LinkedIn. And I'm like, because this is where all my work comes from. So I had to kind of stand down and block them and all that kind of stuff. But it's just awful to watch it, you know, to see things like that, and just how people react. And I think somebody has to take one for the team. And I think it's if I put a post out and somebody says, oh, you know, why would I want to work with you? You don't even know how to spell. You know, I think get lost. I delete you and block you because you're not the kind of person I want to work with anyway. So,
and your business is not English literature and spelling, is it? Your business is being the entrepreneur's godmother.
It is, but then that's why, again, a lot of people can't see. They just can't see that. So that's not the kind of people that I want to either be connected to or working with. I just don't want to do it. I don't need to. Why would I subject myself? Because, you know, I talk about not feeling stupid, but when somebody's, you know, saying those things, you know, you're not made of leather. You know, eventually some of that stuff is going to actually, you know, sink in and start to hurt your feelings. And I think that's where you can't build the wall high enough if you have got those people in your network, because you don't want them. You don't want people that talk to you like that. You wouldn't take it in the real world. Why would you take it in the virtual world?
No, it's yeah, exactly. I completely agree with you. It's why do people feel they need to be horrible about something like that when you put a post on LinkedIn trying to help other people? It's just, some people just, I don't know. Priorities, because they probably could go get a coach that does a similar thing to you that may not be as good as you but can spell brilliantly. And
yeah, but then that's where, you know, are they as creative? Can they help them think outside the box? No, they can't. So crack on.
Yeah, crack on. Yeah. Come back to me in a few years. Yeah, I agree. Do you? So you said you got Fiona reading out loud. Is that on your Mac? Do you use? Yeah. I'm going to say Siri and see if my phone kicks off. To talk the messages into your phone in the first place. It's one of the get-rounds I sometimes use.
Well, I would if I wasn't Scottish, but they don't understand what I say. I've got the problem that it never comes out with anything that I say, because it's like, it's like that YouTube. Have you seen the YouTube thing for 11 when two Scottish guys get into a lift and they're trying to go to floor number 11 and they're going 11, and it's a voice activated lift. So you have to watch this if you haven't seen it. So I really struggle
I'll link that in the show notes.
Yeah, literally with any of the tools that take your voice and translate them, it doesn't work with a Scottish accent.
I went to university in Aberdeen, and I went sort of later on in life. So I used to be a lorry mechanic before that. So my part-time job was back being a lorry mechanic, because why not? And we sat there and they're like, all of the people have got heavy Aberdonian accents and like, Siri's rubbish. It doesn't work. They have got an iPhone in the middle. I'm like, what do you mean? And it does exactly, yeah, okay. And they storm off.
Yeah, there's another YouTube, I'm not going to say because it's quite sweary, but there's another woman that's trying to get Alexa to play What's Cooking, I think it is, play Dana, What's Cooking or something like that. And literally she's having a full-on fight. Never get Siri and the other one, I'm not going to say the names, never get into a fight with a Scottish woman when she's been drinking, because you're never going to win.
Yeah, there's who's that Scottish comic, and he does a whole sketch about booking cinema tickets, and he's like, yeah, it doesn't understand anything apart from the word Glasgow. So obviously the mobile phone personal assistant stuff don't work. So does that write you off being able to use software like Dragon, actually speaking, sort of more bespoke stuff?
I think, it's really quite interesting because my head doesn't work in that way.
Okay.
It doesn't, I can't, like you're asking me questions and I can reply.
Yeah.
But I couldn't formulate. So when it came to the books, because I think this is important for as a dyslexic, how the hell did I manage to write 2 books? And
I was going to ask you on that.
Yeah. So I needed help because a lot of the stuff gets stuck between my ears. So
yeah, I feel it's like having a big motorway in your head. but you have to come out onto a small B road for it to come out onto a page, is kind of my analogy of that.
Yeah, but then if somebody's driving the car for you, then you can make it on that B road. So I think I write the books. The content is mine and it comes from my ears. Yes. And a lot of the stuff, Secrets of Successful Sales was a sort of an easier book to write on hindsight. Hindsight's a great thing. But I didn't think I could write. I think this is really important for the listeners that, for years, I can't write. I'm dyslexic. I can't write. And I told myself that I can't write. The choir. So one day, literally, I said to my team, I've got a great team. Again, they're all young, they're all spirited. And again, they've all got degrees in English literature, or at this time they had degrees in English literature.
Surround yourself with people with the strengths you don't have.
There's that delegation thing. I learned that at an early age. And I said to the girls, they said, we're going to write a blog today on this and a blog today on that. And I went, I can't write a blog. Then one day I went, right, stop. And they all went, what do you mean stop? And I said, right, why am I not writing the blogs? And they're like, Alison, we don't know. Why are you not writing the blogs? And I said, I'm going to write a blog. And they laughed, right? And they were like, you go, Carol, you write that blog. We're behind you 100%. So I wrote the blog, which is in the first book, about sales and marketing being like golf. So I wrote this blog about sales and marketing being like golf, and it was 500 words. I put it out on LinkedIn and it went mad. People loved it. They absolutely loved it because I translated a subject into something that was relatable, and it gave me a wee bit of a va-va-voom to say, I'm going to write. I'm good at this. People love it. I'm going to do more. So I broke it into these short blogs. So maybe between 500 and 700 words. I was quite clear on the topic. It was stuff that I taught anyway. So it was quite easy because the content was really known to me. So it was a case of, but again, and I think the reason that I struggle with dragon or otter is it goes too fast. My voice goes too fast and I don't capture it. Whereas if I go, right, sales and marketing is like golf, and I tell a wee story in my head, right, okay, why is sales and marketing like golf? Right, okay, most people don't know. And I can talk, it's like I'm talking to myself. And that's where I slow down when I type because I'm in the third. It's as if I'm acting like being an author. So I'm in the third person when I write. So it's not really me that's writing, it's this third person in my head that's quite good at this.
Yeah. Do they have a name?
No, literally. Oh my God, now I'll find another thing. But no, it is just, I feel that I'm writing through third person eyes. And I think that's what makes it easier. So the grammar's not obviously going to be 100% and there'll be words missing, but the content is coming through the third person to me, to the page. So that's what made it a wee bit easier.
Okay.
But the confidence still wasn't there. So I decided I would get a ghostwriter. So first of all, I thought I'm going to get a ghostwriter. First of all, I thought I'll do, I'll just narrate it into a dictaphone, send it off to the Philippines and I'll have a book. Woo! That didn't work. And then I thought, I'm going to have a ghostwriter. I'll get a ghostwriter to interview me. He'll take the notes. He'll write the book. Oh, voila, I'll have a book. And we invested quite a bit of money and the book came back. And my team were all like, that's rubbish. That's a load of rubbish. That just does not sound like you. It's not your tone. It's not the words you would use. This is rubbish. I said, well, what do we do then? They went, you're going to get off your backside and just write the book. So I did. And that's where I broke it into chunks. Kaya, who was with me at the time, she would kind of edit it. And then we would say, right, what's the topic on this? And there would be bits. And I'd go, right, can you just type this bit? And she would type some of the bits. And we cobbled together a book and the book just went mad. I mean, Secrets of Successful Sales was voted by the Independent newspaper one of the best business books written by a woman. I mean, literally, that's unbelievable. You talk about the MBE, the fact that the Independent are writing my book as the best business book of one of the best business books of the year. It is extraordinary. So I think that gave me confidence. And what we did was I was able to take the blogs and put them in, slot them in. So I'd already written quite a lot of the content anyway. It was just a case of joining the dots to make it a bit like a jigsaw puzzle, right? So when you get a box and you get the jigsaw puzzle, the first thing you do is do the edges. So when I wrote the book, the first thing I did was the shape of the book. And then what I had to work out is where everything fitted from my content and how it all fitted in. So that's how we ended up with the first book. And then we just replicated it for the second one.
Ah, okay. So, yes, by the second one, you got the process. Did you use the same team or had you swapped team members?
So that's interesting as well, because the second one was written during COVID, and Kaya, who helped me with the first book, she'd left. I encouraged my team to leave because they're all young and there's a big world out there and they don't want to be stuck working for this old lady for the whole of their life. They want to go and find the world. So Kaya was in Portugal and she was coming back. And she didn't have a job. And I said, well, I know that people are getting made redundant and furloughed, but would you like to start a new job working for me doing a new book? And she went, yes, please. And that's where we did smash it. And I'm so proud of it. I mean, I'm really, I don't come from the world of personal development. I had to do quite a lot of research on the book to find out the flow and how it all fitted together. But I'm proud of the book. I'm proud of the app. And I'm just really proud of them.
Yeah. It sounds great, actually, that you clearly got a team and one person in particular that understands your voice. So I guess you sort of, the way I'm interpreting what you're saying, you sort of did a bit of a brain dump on a page and they would kind of tweak it to make it read right, or sometimes would write bits you were struggling with, but it's your voice because they understand you so well and they're quite close to you.
Matthew, I'll tell you this, right? So when it comes to blogs, so obviously now we do blogging content because we need to do it for the SEO for the website.
Yes,
and I will read a piece of content and I go, did I write that? And they're like, no, you were training that day. We just wrote that as you. So my team literally can now write in Scottish. None of them are Scottish, but they can write in Scottish. And I'm so proud of them. I think that's a skill that teamwork really does make the dream work. I couldn't be who I am without my team that support me and not just support me, support me in every way. A 360 support. They don't think I'm stupid. They think I'm brilliant and they don't care whether I can spell or I'm dyslexic. They think that it's great that I go out there and bring the money in from nowhere to pay the wages. And that's what really... don't ever surround yourself by people who don't support you to that extent. Yeah,
totally. Having people you mesh with is brilliant, isn't it? Like finding people that you complement each other and their skills they can see your blind spots, you see theirs, and their skills complement yours. Is when it all just synergistically works. It's absolutely wonderful when it does that. And it's a brilliant team, and everybody just pulls one great direction. Now that I was wondering, because I was thinking books as a dyslexic person must be scary. So you had the framework for the books and you're, as you said, filling in the jigsaw. What sort of turns you on to which section to research in? Because I know you really like your DISC personality profiles appear quite a lot in both books. And how did you kind of find out about that? It's kind of one of the main, it feels like one of the main pillars of both books it's a book on sales, but it's really a book on either understanding yourself or understanding how other people are and then adapting your approach to suit that situation rather than just bulldozing through as you all the time.
And you know what? So I think that we did DISC when I worked in corporate, and I think it was a game changer for me to really understand that I do have to adapt to build strong relationships. And I think of all my content, people love that. They really, really love that. And not everyone is blessed with emotional intelligence. For some people that's a natural ability. But again, if you look at the neurodiverse, community, a lot of people, that's really not the strength that they've been blessed with in that space, that they struggle with emotional intelligence. And I think, but a lot of them, they enjoy learning how to learn new things. So if they've got the skills and it's like a process and they can follow a process to get to the situation they want to get to, that I think arming them with that knowledge and making it relatable again is something that I love the DISC stuff. I love the psychology, and obviously I have not got a degree in psychology, so I try and translate the academic aid psychology things. It's like Maslow's hierarchy and needs. Like when I translate Maslow's hierarchy of needs into like Tom Hanks' Castaway the movie, But for me, I think, yeah, that's just Castaway. My God, like he was at the top of the triangle, and the plane crashed, and it's like COVID, and again, these are the wee bits that people absolutely adore. So I think it's
really really clever.
I'm fascinated in
because it's like, yeah, I know, and I could visualize the pyramid, but directly you're like, well, let's talk about my friend Tom Hanks, and she friends with Tom. I'm not really okay.
My friend Tom Hanks, in brackets, not really my friend. I mean, it's interesting. Obviously, I narrated, you probably touch on this in a minute as well, but I narrated the audio books, and
that's what I've listened to. Yeah.
But I had to do that. Fear could have held me back from that. There was very good editing, like literally both books, very good editing. And I don't mean. I mean, they supported me unquestionably. I was hard work, and especially Smash It, because Smash It has got 71,000 words. Secrets of Successful Sales is only 46,000. So Smash It is like double the book. It's double the man than the other one was, So when I was getting the price from the recording studio, they said, how many thousand words? I said 71. Oh, they went, that's 2 days. And I went, I think we should book in 4. And they went, no, we do these all the time. I said, well, just out of interest, who does them all the time? Oh, the actors, the voiceover people. Yeah, they're probably not dyslexic. Let's go for 4 days and book 4 days in the studio, and touch wood, we got it done. Hard graft, but we did it in 3. So, and literally every time I screwed up, they go, stop, read it again, stop, read it again. So we had to take it sentence by sentence. You have to, because otherwise I would never have got the book out. Yeah,
I was just thinking, how's the practice? Because I was like, I listen to audiobooks all the time, which that's dyslexic hack, eh? And I'm listening to it driving along and think nothing of it, because obviously it's wonderfully edited and the story flows and it works. And I'm like, well, yeah, because Alison does a lot of public speaking. But I'm just thinking, as you were talking, actually, you're having to read your own book back to yourself and say it as the page says it, right?
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Say it as the page has it. I can't read it as the page. Even though I wrote it, I'm missing words out or seeing words that aren't there and adding words and all the rest of it. And it's like, let's try that one again. It's actually could be, my friend Tom or whatever it is. So I think that if I had £1 for every time the editor said, let's try that sentence again, and actually, can you stop adding the extra word? So, in a nice way. So that was, and I do public speaking, but I know my content for that, so I follow that visually in my head. So I'll know the points, like I'll know the cues of where to go. And that's why sometimes I'll use my slide pack as a crutch. My slide pack doesn't have any words on it, but it just makes me know what the next, I mean, I suppose it's a bit like singing a song, isn't it? I've written the song, but sometimes like even the singers, like even Oasis get Wonderwall wrong. I think sometimes, but that kind of thing, you can't get away with that if you're recording it. But if you're doing it live and you add an extra, but after all, it's my Wonderwall, nobody's going to question it if you're doing it live. But
the crowd just going to sing along anyway. Yeah,
recorded. Like they've all had too much to drink if it's like the Glasgow version of the band, so you're okay.
How did you find the performance aspect of that? If you're getting an editor to come in your ear and go, so you've just read the wrong sentence, you've just added extra words to the sentence, but you're mid-flow telling this story with all the texture and all the vocal inflection. How do you find re-recording it? Because imagine, as you said, you kind of...
that not bad. Yeah, but then I think that's where the performance side, when I'm speaking at events, that a lot of that is a performance. So a lot of the stuff, when you're, even if it's your own book, you're performing the book.
Yeah.
The bits that is really tough, and I had to focus because there's obviously quite a few personal stories, losing my eyesight and, postnatal depression. There's quite a lot of like really poignant parts. And that was really hard to read. I think at the beginning, there's a narrative part that I'll lead in, again, about when I had the birth of my first son, Kieran, and it's quite a strong narrative. And that was actually one of the first things I wrote because people wanted more of a personal story. They wanted to know more about me in this book. So I had to deliver some of the things, but not just talking about myself, but what it means to them, what they can do, how they can find that strength. And I think it was important, but I must say it was hard enough writing that. But see, when you're reading that and you're recreating really traumatic times in your own life, it's bad enough doing that if you're not dyslexic, but when you're dyslexic and you've got to keep that flow, it was so tiring. Physically, I was exhausted because I had to stay on the focus. I had to really work so hard to try and read the sentence that I was physically exhausted by the end of it.
Oof, yes, yeah. And that you're saying about the postnatal depression, that was really quite hard to listen to because you could hear the emotion in it, but you couldn't hear the focus in it, which is a good thing. But actually, I hadn't thought of you sat there in a booth with a microphone thinking, as a dyslexic, I imagine these all come flooding back as strong images and you're horrific in that world, but can't deviate from what the page says as you start talking.
No, you can't, literally. And I think that's the difference between reading and actually just being able to tell the story. It's reading. I must say that of all the things I've ever done in my life, I'd say that that's probably one of the most difficult, is narrating those 2 audiobooks.
Yeah. But congratulations on doing it, because if your audience is mostly dyslexic, then that's the very way they're going to consume the content.
I had to take one for the team. I had to take one for the team. That's why more people need to download that book, because I took one for the team.
Yes. Bit of a slight left turn. You're saying about researching all the science and psychological theories and stuff to go into your book. How do you consume that content? Are you watching YouTube videos and audiobooks, or are you reading it yourself? I'm curious to see how you then digest data before it goes distilled through your brain and out into a book of your own.
That's where Kaya comes in. So she'll read, things like Maslow's. I had a rough overview. Things like, the psychology in the brain and the fear, the fight, flight, freeze. And, I tried to read the chimp paradox. I thought, if I read that, that wasn't working. And even I tried to digest it in Audible form. I downloaded it on Audible and it was just too overwhelming. So I had to get Kaya to read that bit. You do the heavy duty research. And then what we'll do is we'll verbally talk it through and come up with content that I can understand. Because a lot of the stuff I don't understand, which is why I think Tom Hanks in Castaway is a perfect example, because I'm going like, safety, security, physiological. Oh my God, what does that mean for the real people? What does that mean to me? I don't understand. And I think that's where I couldn't. So there's bits in the book where we had to go quite deep on the stuff behind it, the psychology behind it. And those are the bits that Kaya would have written, so she would have written those bits, because that would just have taken forever, because I didn't really understand the depth that needed. So I said, go into, I'll give you an example, the bit around high and low self-esteem. So the self-esteem section.
Yep.
So, I obviously understand high and low self-esteem, but I think it needed more knowledge behind it rather than just my thoughts. And I think that the level of knowledge came from Kaya, and then I took the bit into the wee stories that other people understand. So that's where the teamwork really came in and writing the books.
Yeah, and I could see that. Yeah, and it's really it seems like a really sort of good dyslexic trait, that yet being able to, well, here's the information and then bolting it to, as you say, Castaway for the Maslow.
Yeah, but I think even when I was narrating as well, Matthew, that even reading those bits, I'm like, oh my God, this is dull. And I was really struggling, and that's where I'd make the mistakes, and there would be words, like big words that I didn't know what the word meant. And even then it was like words, I was like, I don't know how to pronounce that. And the editor would have to say, whatever the word was. But one of the words, it was really funny, because we talk about metathesiophobia a lot. This is like some of the content that I talk about in training. And when it came to, I reeled off in front of the editor, I went, metathesiophobia. And he went, and when the next time I made a mistake and he stopped me, he went, I can't believe that you could pronounce that word. And I'm like, it's because I've had a lot of practice on that one. So there's other words that I really struggled with that are in the book. So, but again, I think I'm really honest about it, Matthew, that, I explain warts and all where the book came from and how I wrote the book. It's not important how, what the method of writing it is. It's ultimately that you get it out there. And I think it's like a lot of people would be hiding behind the fact that, oh yes, I wrote it all myself. Look at me, give me a gold star. I'm like, well, yeah, I wrote these bits and I did this bit, but I had a wee bit of help with that one. And there's nothing wrong, especially when you are neurodiverse, to ask for help. Yeah, can you help me with this? Because you're much better at it than me. Why would you not if you're still getting to the finish line?
Exactly. And actually, why would you hinder yourself by being in your own little narrow lane? People are there to help you, and the people who don't want to help you, probably you don't necessarily need in your social network in the first place.
No, definitely not.
No, it's really fascinating. Actually, I hadn't quite thought of how difficult the audiobook would be, because I was like, you've wrote it, you just narrate it because it's been written, edited, and is correct.
Tough.
Oh dear. So, how did you come up with the idea of swapping from corporate world into your own business after a while? Do you think that was a slight dyslexic thing? You were getting a little bit kind of frustrated with the corporate world? You hear quite a lot of dyslexics start to struggle with not being able to take leadership and strive and do their own thing and do it in their own way. Do you feel that was something that was bubbling in the background?
No, I think that's the joy of working in sales. They kind of encourage you to be a bit renegade, and as long as you're following the rules, as long as you hit your target and you're doing it legally, then people don't really care. But at that time, I'm a fan of change. I think that's one of the things that I love change. In fact, I adore change. Change is something that I embrace. And again, I believe that comes from my dyslexia, that I'm not scared of change. I don't have metathesiophobia. So the company, big corporate companies are like elephants. It takes them a long time to change direction, and they've got all the stuff. Whereas a small business is agile, they're like a gazelle. So I felt that my efforts would be better to teach smaller businesses how to sell. So it was a wrench. I'd been with the company for 15 years and I loved working with them. It's hilarious because I've just been back working with their leadership team on a new strategy, which is lovely. And I'm so proud. That's what I was saying when I was with them. I was really proud to have worked with them for such a long time. And I wouldn't have a business if I hadn't been trained so well by them, because a lot of the stuff that I teach now is what I learned when I worked with them. So, but they weren't moving as quickly as I wanted to move. And I knew that was the time. But I think, you look at dyslexic people, I think a lot of entrepreneurs are dyslexic. I think it is a quality that it really helps you, because I think maybe the fear factor isn't as high. Maybe you're not as worried about, maybe you've had to deal with rejection and different things in your life and it gives you strength. I don't know. I mean, again, that's something I'd love to find out more about. But
me too. I kind of, a couple of theories, and I'm not a psychologist or play one on the internet, but one thing I think maybe there's a level of grit, because school didn't necessarily work for you. You kind of have that instilled level of, if you manage to get all right exam grades to get into university, college, or get into a job, there's that level of grit that's built in. And there's also, you spend your whole life as a young adult where the thing doesn't work for you anyway. So you spend all your time working out a way to hack your way around the system you're in that doesn't work.
And I think that's what entrepreneurship is. Entrepreneurship is finding a problem and putting a solution in place. And if you've been doing that for your whole life, you think, I don't understand why other people haven't done this. This is really easy. So I think there's that optimism that you can achieve things because you just believe that you can solve a problem, and that's entrepreneurship, and that's what the gift of dyslexia gives you, I think.
I think so. I was listening. There's a book called Grate by Angela Duckworth, and she sort of talking through it. And I'm like, this does sound, the grit scale is what she says is more of an indicator of success than talent alone. And I think, you just sort of listen to it, think, well, yeah, successful dyslexics must have that by the bucket load because you just learned it from such a young age.
Yeah, you just keep going, don't you?
Okay, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to round this off with, I have a few rapid fire questions that I'd like to ask all the guests. So I thought I'd fire them at you and see what you think.
I'm nervous, but I've got grit. I'll get through this.
Yes, you will indeed. But they don't need quick answers. They're just quick questions from me. So, first one, what prejudice do you have about dyslexia that has been proven wrong?
I don't know if I have a prejudice against it. Again, it sounds a wee bit odd, but I don't know if I know enough about it. So it's not a topic. Although I am dyslexic, I haven't done much research on it. I've never written any, I've never translated it into an Alison Edgarism. So I don't think I have any. Maybe the prejudice lies with other people.
Potentially, yeah. I'd be interested to see what the Alison Edgarism would be. You have to let me know if you think of one.
Maybe that's the third book. That's the third book.
There you go. Just write it down.
The trilogy, Alison Edgar, the trilogy. I'll find some big balls for dyslexia.
Alison's dyslexia balls. Okay. Next question. How would you describe dyslexia to somebody now if an alien come down?
Oh, I definitely think it's a gift and a superpower that makes us think differently and do things in a less conventional way to get better results.
I agree. And the last one, because this is the Dyslexia Life Hacks Show, any dyslexia life hacks?
I think focus completely on the things that are not dyslexic. Focus on the things that you are brilliant with, and then the things that you really struggle with, well, why do you have to do them yourself? Just find somebody that can help you with them. And I think I've proved that. I think I don't even have to say that in a theory. I've proved that firsthand that you can do that.
Yes. I have a hack on the website called You've Got a Friend in Me that covers that kind of point. You're totally right. And I think actually you really illustrated it quite well while we've been talking how that really, really helps out. Is there anything else you'd like to add or any other things you'd like to say before we sort of sign off?
No, just if anybody has enjoyed listening to the podcast, the books, Secrets of Successful Sales and Smash It, The Art of Getting What You Want, are both available on Amazon. I'm really easy to find. There is computers now and I am Googleable. So on social media, I am at the Alison Edgar, and on LinkedIn, I'm Alison Edgar MBE. So I am quite easy to find. If MDs enjoyed the podcast, get in touch with me, and if I can help in any way, then just please let me know.
Oh, thank you. I will also link all that in the show notes, which will be available at dyslexialifehacks.com/podcast. And thank you very much for coming on the show, Alison.
You are very welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Excellent. Goodbye, everybody.